no idea why it didn't work. Okay, I think it's working now. I think it should be.
Okay, send me the link and then I can update.
I just want to absolutely double check.
Okay, okay.
Okay, it's not yet appearing. It's not appearing on the channel yet. Just give it a second.
Okay.
Still not there. I mean, it says I'm streaming. I think I am. Yeah, I am streaming right now. Yeah.
And then I'll update the link.
Okay,
Just-
I'm about to send you the link. This link is 100%
Okay.
working.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Alright. Okay, I should be able. Okay, so I can see the chat now.
Oh shit, I still have
Alright.
technical difficulties.
Hello, sub2water.
Hello? Yeah, is it working?
I think it's working. Just people in the YouTube chat, can you just confirm that everything's working normally? Bro said first, but he was like the 10th commenter. Okay. Mary Chrysler. Okay. So everyone, is everything working fine? You can hear me, you can see the screen. Can you see Steam right now? Alright. Cool. So I'm just gonna so to begin with, we're just gonna spend a bit of time going through the Locomotion build, testing out the driving and stuff that we have. And you can ask any questions about that while I'm driving around. Let's see. Which one is this?
Which build?
Oh yeah, okay, so this
It doesn't even know that.
this is like a slightly older build, before it has sound yet. But the basic mechanics are still the same. It's the Locomotion build. The physics of the driving and stuff. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions while we're doing this before we move on to something else.
How long are we planning to stream? That's a good question.
An hour and a half, 2 hours maybe.
Most of our streams usually go.
Okay, the tracks are quite
Well.
loud apparently. Let me just change that.
Oh, quite loud. You see the suspension in it.
Is that better? Is this better in terms of the volume for the tracks? Is it still bad? Should I turn it all the way down?
Okay, what's this? Oh yeah, my mic is probably a bit crisp. I don't know how bad it is. How bad is it through
I can turn you down a little bit, Oz.
Yeah, maybe turn me down. It might be a bit loud.
Okay, I've just turned him down to like 60% on Discord.
Yeah. If anyone wants to see this.
Someone wants to see the suspension in action. Alright. I'll
Yeah.
drive over these bumps. So, show the light side, okay. So the, yeah, this is the sort of locomotion system we have going right now. It's, the build we actually currently are working on is more advanced. This is just the old one that I had on my PC. We have sounds and stuff, like engine sounds now. You should be able to...
Wait, is this the one that Robert put the patron?
Yeah, that's right. This is the patron build.
You show them the 0 to 60 on the 10
yeah.
before.
takes a while.
Doesn't even make it to 60.
Yeah, there's some issues
Like
with
42.
tracks in Unreal Engine 5 related to anti-aliasing. They look a bit strange. Those have actually been fixed now. It's no longer a problem anymore. But in this build, they have some strange tendencies. Yeah, it takes a really long time to get to
Any
full
sort of
speed.
Yeah. Oh wait, you should show the first person view as well.
Yeah, I'm in first person now.
Nice.
Can we see an insight on the map? Like, do you mean the environment for the game? Is that what you meant, Mr. Toast? Yeah, so it takes this long to get up to its top speed of like 42 kph. So it's extremely slow. Yeah, you may be surprised by actually how bad the acceleration is on these tanks.
I mean, and this is still even without textures. No, this one has.
No, this one has textures.
Yeah.
This one has textures.
I'm remembering the old build just before this one.
Yeah.
It was still the same texture as the ground. Oh, about guns and ammo. Do you model them accurately or for balance? For example, the APCR on the 76 Jumbo would go to a target to H turret, or will you model it like this?
Yeah, so we're going at it from an accuracy perspective. We're not changing the historical values of ammunition or vehicles. It's all going to be historical.
That's actually something that's starting to be developed too, isn't it? Ballistic?
Yeah, so the flight ballistics are already completed. Terminal ballistics are a little bit more complicated, but that is going to turn out extremely well, because we have some pretty incredible sources and people working on that currently.
Apparently, not like you.
Oh, by the way, Mr. Toast, you wanted to know about the environment. So, the next devlog is going to go out tomorrow. That's going to show more of the map for you to see. Just before I get off this build, I'll show you guys the climbing ability of the Panzer IV.
Oh yeah, that was something that we like, Roberto Costa and all of us were messing around. That was like the one thing we were really like concerned about, was getting the climbing realistic, because you know, in like War Thunder, everything feels like you're sliding around, but like realistically, a tank has a lot of grip.
Yeah, huge
So
amount of grip.
we like tuned that. We tried to tune that as well as we could.
So, yeah, a lot of you will probably know that games have actually kind of historically struggled a lot to give tanks the accurate traction. So the locomotion system, that's kind of like was a big focus of the locomotion system, and yeah, the traction is perfect. It can climb the exact slope that it could historically. I'll show you that, guys, now. You might kind of be surprised at just how much grip a tank actually has. It's pretty crazy.
Hector asks, will the tracks break if there's too much stress?
I think track braking is like a planned mechanic if you know, crash into something
I guess
or something like that.
It falls into the same sort of category as, like, you know, a track slipping.
Yeah.
Which would be something that was planned. Yeah. Delta asks, why did you choose this model of Panzer IV?
Basically because we thought the best thing to do would be to start with the earliest version that was planned, and then from then, when we add the later versions, we can just add onto the existing model, rather than if we started with the late one, we'd have to basically subtract. So this is like the earliest planned Panzer to have in the initial theater. So yeah, you guys can see 40 degrees it can climb up. I might fall off now.
Alex, after like maybe 5 hours worth of driving in just this build alone, and still cannot climb up the hill.
It's okay. I mean, let's see. Okay. I need to try and. Oh shit! There we go.
Oh,
Okay.
Finn asked, what is
Yeah.
happening?
Okay.
Finn asked, will fuel be a factor in battle? Like, will you run out or like increase the chances of fuel detonation? Like, if you like run out like less, like you use up more fuel, there's less fuel in the fuel tank, less chances of
Actually,
explode.
technically it's the opposite. So the less fuel you have in the tank, basically, it becomes slightly more dangerous past a certain point because you have more air in the fuel tank to mix with the fire, so it actually becomes more dangerous in terms of flammability. So, but yeah, that actually is going to be modeled. So if you have a full fuel tank, you're technically going to be slightly safer. If you have like half a fuel tank, it's going to be slightly more flammable because of the mixture of the oxygen and the fuel. But yeah, I mean, I would show more, but this is kind of an old build, and there's so much more interesting stuff now, like the engine sounds, which I honestly I thought this build had the sounds. I'm kind of sad.
Do we not have a link for them
I don't
to
know.
download?
I think we might have. I think we might have deleted it because it was just like a simple test build temporarily. I'll show it off at some point later on.
Do you not don't? Oh wait, do you not have the sounds that Jan made? Like, I thought you saved a whole bunch of them.
No. I mean, I have the sounds, but what I'm saying is that
Oh yeah, it's
they were
on the
put
build,
into
yeah.
yeah. Okay, yeah, I realized
Okay.
that breathing on the mic thing is. What about now? Is this better? I've like put it somewhere else.
Oh yeah, it's on the build, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I realized that breathing on the mic thing is. What about now? Is this better? Okay, yeah, I think the breathing problem has been eliminated.
Oh, Gabrielle asked about impacts from like big guns that don't pen, like say maybe like even like a HE shell, for example. Will it still like stun or rattle the crew?
Well, yeah, because the HE shell still causes a lot of effects when it hits, because it hits and it dislodges material and fragments from the interior, basically sending spool throughout the tank. So HE shells can definitely still be dangerous to tanks, and something like a stun mechanic could be possible.
Maybe for like a big AP shell if it doesn't like and it like lances off the side
Definitely.
of the tank.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I saw Einfach Honig said, "Will there be multi-crew at some point?" Yeah, that's like the core kind of feature of this game is multi-crew tanks.
It's not even that far off, is it?
No, we're thinking sometime in February is possibly when it's going to be fully functional in that sense. It's already replicated, it just hasn't got all of the infrastructure. The model is incredible, by the way. Who made it? Yeah, that would be Santipap, who is our 3D modeler. Just as a little sneak peek, I'll show you guys the T-34, which is being modeled currently. So obviously we're sort of looking forward to the day when we're going to have the modeled Panzer IV versus another tank. So the Panzer IV is making really good progress. But yeah, the T-34, we've got that under the way, and it should take a lot less time to implement because all the infrastructure for the locomotion, the functionality on the interior is already there. What nations will we see in the future? Okay, well, obviously I'm conscious of the fact that not everyone is on Discord, but on Discord I posted a list of planned theaters. Keep in mind this is like a long-term plan, but let me just find it real quick. So initial theater planned is the Soviet Union versus Germany. Eastern Front, late 1942. The one after that we're looking at is probably Greece and Britain versus Germany and Italy, spring 1941. That would be the Battle of Greece Theatre. And then the next three, we don't have a specific order, it's just long-term plans. Those would be US and Britain versus Germany, Western Front, late war, US and Britain versus Japan, late war, and US and Britain versus Germany and Italy and North Africa. But obviously these are extremely long-term plans, and it's going to keep us occupied for a very long time, obviously.
All Light Up are the vehicles going to be included in the game, or is it going to be a pay-per-module system similar to DCS.
So a lot of the vehicles are going to be free, the standard vehicles which you'd find in any theater. And then basically the way it's going to work is we have premium and limited edition vehicles. Premium vehicles are rare in their theater, but they're perpetually available, but they are paid. And then limited edition vehicles are for extremely rare vehicles, which you wouldn't see very much in real life at all. They will be paid and will only sell a limited amount of them. And after that point, they will have to circulate via the in-game marketplace, but there will only be a limited amount of them in circulation ever.
What was it? What was the next question? Oh, Potato is good for you. Asked, will the gun barrel have a hitbox? Like if it hits the wall, will it get damaged?
Yeah, it's not gonna be it's not gonna phase through things. You will have to take into account if you go into a narrow street, whether your barrel is long enough to actually turn around. It will have a collision model. And yes, if you turned your turret to the side and drove straight into a building, you'd probably, tear something off, damage the turret rotation gear.
Artem asked, what about communication? Will there be some kind of intercom?
The way it's currently planned, just for the sake, basically just for the sake of simplicity and universalizing the experience between tanks, basically all tanks will have an intercom system, even though historically not all of them did. It's just not going to be feasible to somehow translate that into a gaming experience. So all vehicles will have an intercom system, but only vehicles with radios will actually be able to communicate with people outside of the tank. So radios are still an important they're still an important feature to have in a tank, because if you don't have a radio, you're trapped inside. You can't really communicate with other people outside, apart with maybe flags or something. So yeah, no kicking the driver mechanic, unfortunately. It's just not going to be feasible, because remember, we need AIs to be able to operate these tanks as well. So if we had a different system in every single tank, it means training AIs to function in a myriad of different ways. It's just not feasible. We have to universalize a lot of things.
Hector was talking about a FOMO system, and was just looking for some more clarification on monetization through that.
Yeah, so the vast majority of the vehicles which you have ever even heard of are perpetually available, paid, or just free. They come with the game. When we're talking about limited edition vehicles, we're talking about almost the entire majority of the time vehicles which the average person hasn't heard of. I mean, the canned Z511, the I don't know, something.
The Carl Garat, which 7 of them were made.
Yeah. These vehicles which aren't really core gameplay experiences. I understand that fear of missing out is a concern, which is obviously is a concern that people have, but it's really not a core business strategy. It's just in the interest of keeping these vehicles rare on the battlefield, whilst also allowing players to have the possibility of obtaining them at a later date.
I mean, I think the biggest difference, it is War Thunder will put them up and make those sort of limited time premiums good to increase that fear of missing out. But the only reason that they are limited edition is because they are rare. It's like a manual way of making it so that it's historically accurate, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say, because we are not basically making concessions for balance, we are modeling the vehicles as they are, and balancing in other ways. You have to keep in mind, limited edition vehicles, I mean, why were so few of them made? Probably because they just weren't as good as the mass-produced vehicles. So, I mean, if anything, the vehicles which you find a huge amount of on the battlefield are more likely to be better than the ones which were produced in very, very small numbers. So, I don't actually think this whole fear of missing out thing is a valid concern here. I mean, for all intents and purposes, the player can just completely ignore it. ignore the limited edition vehicles. It's really not a core feature of the game, so to speak. Think of all the legendary vehicles from World War II. You know, they're perpetually available, either free or paid.
I mean, it's just like you gotta like differentiate the sort of system that's in place. Like you know, it's not because something's good that it's a premium. It's because
Yeah.
it's rare. That's like the only reason.
But anyway, we're getting quite a lot of questions. We might have to pick up the pace
Oh
in
yeah,
answering them.
true.
And
Are you going to launch before aircraft are playable, or will you wait for the combined arms to be ready?
yeah, that's an interesting question. It's basically just dependent on our funding going forwards. Ideally, we would launch with at least a few aircraft playable, like the 109, Stuka, IL-2. But it is possible that we may launch with the ground vehicles and then head to the aircraft later. Yeah.
Um, next. Oh, can we repair damaged rare vehicles? And if a rare vehicle is destroyed, is it destroyed permanently?
In terms of on
It's
your,
an interesting one.
in terms of, yeah, it's Plastic Ape. Hello, Joe. um, in terms of, in terms of how the vehicle works, I mean, it's tied to your account, so it can't be, like, you can't lose it perpetually. I mean, you can lose it in the game, but you wouldn't lose it forever. When it comes to, like, in the actual match itself, there is a plan for you to be able to, basically, if you disable an enemy tank, tow it back to friendly lines, repaint it in friendly colors, and then take it out.
Oh, is the game going to be on a console? I mean, that lots of people do that.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We're basically just keeping it open-ended because it basically is one of those situations where we have to look into the feasibility of that closer to release, depending on the performance and the feasibility of porting it to different platforms. Essentially, we're saying it's a possibility as of now, but not like 100% confirmed. The main thing we're focusing on is PC.
How will this game compare to IL-2 Tank Crew? Will there be any big differences in concept?
I'll just lower the volume in IL-2 quickly because I feel like it might be way too loud. Am I right? Was that way too loud? Maybe you guys can tell me.
I have the stream muted on us.
Yeah, I'm wondering if someone in the audience can tell me. Oh, sorry, what was the question again?
The question was, how will this game compare to IL-2 Tank Crew? Will
Oh,
there be
yeah.
any big differences in concept?
So it's similar in a lot of ways. But the core difference is the fact that obviously it's 10 years newer, so there have been a lot of technological innovations in game development in that time. So the interaction mechanic with your vehicles will be more akin to Microsoft Flight Simulator, where you can bind things, but you can also basically use your mouse to click on things in the interior. And obviously also infantry is really the big difference. Tanks really require infantry to function in their intended role.
Have you considered anatomical damage to the crew? Like, will there be a possibility that falling can blind crew members or cut arteries?
So we're not going that in depth with the damage model of the humans. Essentially, what we're going to do is basically damage multiply depending on the location of where they're hit. I mean, it's definitely an interesting idea to go more in depth into it, but again, it's sort of one of those areas of cascading complexity, because then depending on the damage or if arms are disabled, we have to work on how game mechanics will work with that, how they'll interact with each other. It is one of those topics where it gets exponentially more complicated and soaks up a huge amount of development time for not that much more gameplay. So we're going for a more Armour 3 type approach, where essentially like you have hit points, but it's damage multipliers depending on where you're hit. So you know, you can take one pistol shot to the head and then you're dead. But you can probably take 2 or 3 to your arms or something and survive.
Oh, I'd up it on the topic of the rarer vehicles. I personally think the rarer vehicles are better utilized by not having a limited number of sale, but rather only 1 or 2 deployed per battle. This removes FOMO and increases sales. Well, that is true. It also can feel quite scammy. So, like, say you spend, I don't know, $65 on a vehicle that you can't even fly in game. That would probably be a lot hard hitting than just it being expensive.
It
and
also
being like a limited time.
Yeah, it also sort of goes against the game's design language, which is the vehicles you have on your account, you should feel entitled to spawn them in games when you join them. And so, you know, let's say I'm extremely passionate about the canned Z511. And none of you guys probably know what that is. It's just an Italian plane. And so let's just say I feel extremely passionate about it and I buy it. It just goes against the design language of the game to not be able to spawn that when you join a match, because there just happen to be 2 more in the game. So the language is, it's on your account, you're entitled to play it. And so that's why basically artificially limiting the vehicles that you can spawn in a game, just depending on what other people have taken, it's not really in the interest of the gamer. And maybe you meant like they're not even tied to accounts, like anyone can spawn them, there's just a limited amount, which is obviously the way that games like Squad do it. But it just makes it so much harder to actually get into the vehicle which you want to crew, whereas, you know, if you have it in your account, I think you're entitled to play it when you want.
So you get lots of questions.
Yeah, a lot.
I think this was through. Oh, someone was asking, will the T-34 have the 85mm version? I mean,
So that wasn't, the 85 wasn't released yet at the time of the initial theater, which is late 1942. So not in the initial theater, but if there are, you know, late war Soviets some point in the future, then I'm sure they would get their T-34 85. But it's just not, it's not historical for the period.
we have an image that we like to share to people who ask if a certain vehicle will be in, and it's will X vehicle be in the game if it was made to any large scale and it was made in real life, yes. And if it was made but in very limited numbers, then it will most likely be a premium.
Yeah, exactly.
Like things like paper tanks that weren't really made like ever, they were just designed like, one comes to mind is like maybe the Ratter that was like never made ever. That is most definitely not coming to the game, right?
Yeah.
Because it was not a real vehicle, but something that was super rare, or that just wasn't like around a lot, like say like whatever your favorite little Italian plane.
Yep.
It's rare and it's hard to, you know, get references for, but it was still real, so it will just be premium.
Yeah. Or limited edition.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, have you put further thought into adding player-controlled half-tracks to squads for assault? The Germans had so many combat support tracks, like the Packwagon and the 251 with the Panzer 41.
So, I mean, yeah, one of the massive benefits of including infantry in the game is that you allow, you know, certain vehicles which relied on infantry to operate to be coming to the game. So, I mean, right now, the devlog, which I'm releasing tomorrow, it goes into more depth about this. The SDK of Z250 we're working on right now, and you can use that to bring infantry into the battle, protect them from small arms fire. So yeah, in short, yeah, exactly. I mean, it would be a waste to have infantry and then not do that. That's one of the massive points of having infantry.
How would destroyed tanks despawn?
How would destroyed tanks despawn?
Yeah, like how would like the hulk of the tank realistically despawn over time, given like to save lag and stuff?
Well, that's sort of a question of whether we actually need to or not. I mean, if we do need to, depending on performance, well, I suppose there's one way of doing that. You just make it despawn. But it's possible that, if it's not too performant, we could just switch out the model with a lower poly destroyed tank model, and keep that there for a while. It sort of depends. I mean, destroyed tanks despawning isn't even necessarily a given. It's possible that we might not do that.
Actually, I don't think we've even had that in the dev queue, maybe.
Yeah.
This is why it's good that we stream on YouTube instead, to get lots of unique.
Yeah, exactly.
Will I be able to jump out of my tank and do recon on foot?
Yeah, exactly. So you can jump out of your tank because you operate a character, so you can do stuff like that, which is one of the big, selling points.
Oh, Sub2 Water recommended a bleeding mechanic that you get in the arm. Would you give bleeding unless you bandage it? What are your opinions on that?
Like a bleeding mechanic in terms of damage?
Yeah, as in it's like you're bleeding, so you have like a debuff on, say, reloading, so it's harder to hit the quick time event.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. We could do something like that. That's definitely not out of the question.
Wouldn't go away until you bandage it.
That's definitely not out of the question. I'm trying to do a Mitra Lexus for anyone who gets that reference. If anyone does, I'll be very impressed. Oh?
Oh, but I think this was a conversation from when we were talking about what the thing that we have on the server with the image. People were asking about the mouse. Since it was created, but it wasn't used in combat.
What, the mouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this kind of plays into another element, which is we're kind of trying to put you in a theater, but allow you to kind of make your own experiences. So the mouse is sort of a slight exception because it was in the middle of a battle, So theoretically, in an alternate universe or whatever, someone could have got in it and operated it against the Soviets. Obviously, I don't think that happened in real life, but in terms of a gameplay experience, I don't think it would be too far-fetched to include something like vehicles that perhaps were present in the middle of a battle, even if it's not entirely certain if they were used or not. Having them as a possible gameplay opportunity is something I'm kind of interested in, so the mouse is, maybe a slight exception. So yeah.
I know this was a question that I just remembered that we never actually answered. Who was asking about how does the research on these tanks work? Like how do we find all our references to that?
Oh yeah, so it's an interesting question. So in a lot of ways, sort of behind the scenes, Aces and Armour feels in some ways more like a research project than game development, since so much of our time is spent on research. So I mean, the way it works is pretty much we have a dedicated research team, and Oz, who is here helping me with the stream, is one of those researchers, and I mean, there's no one way to research a historical vehicle. You can do it in a myriad of different ways, and we do in many different ways. So, we get books, we find websites, we contact museums, we try to track down archives. Anything to find historical information. For most vehicles, it's sort of a mix of, all of the above. Although, interestingly, there are some sort of cool experiences, like specifically with the SDK FZ250, which we are working on right now. We're actually in contact with a guy who owns one, and it's also, interestingly, the only running vehicle that was at Stalingrad, so that's a pretty interesting historical fact. And so, yeah, he's just sending us images, he's sending us research. So we're working with him on the SDK FZ250. Obviously, for most vehicles, it's not that easy. But yeah, it's just a mix of books, museums, archives. We've done some pretty groundbreaking research on certain vehicles. Holy shit!
What is happening to you on the?
Yeah, I got absolutely cooked.
You're
I'm not gonna
warm.
lie. Yeah. I'm just gonna try and make it back to shore and emergency land.
Yeah.
Don't dogfight and do a Q&A live stream at the same time. Specifically I honestly, actually, I won't say what the vehicles are, because then it sort of implies that they're definitely coming to the game, which isn't certain. But there are certain vehicles which we've done pretty groundbreaking research on, and we have more information sort of in our archives currently than there is basically anywhere else in the world.
I mean, that kind of lends itself to like the idea of how this game will kind of act itself as like a digital like museum.
Yeah,
like
virtual
preserving
museum.
all of this information.
Exactly. Yeah, virtual museum.
Oh, will this game, Dust Toaster Bomber asks, will the game be made in such a way that people will start using realistic tactics with their tanks, going in real formations when trying to push a position like the German caterpillar formation?
So, I mean, no reason why not. The game is set up to place you in a, it's a pretty realistic simulation of these events. So, it should be set up in a way where realistic tactics will help you. So, yes, the answer to that in essence is yes.
Somebody asked, will there be an offline single-player mode?
There will be an offline mode. That will essentially be like a mission editor where you can set up your own little scenarios and play them out in single player.
I mean, I think the way that you described it to me was similar to Armour's system with the mission editor, right?
Yeah, I mean, probably not as complex as the Armour system, because that's like, it's quite complicated, but some kind of mission editor, yeah.
Schleifiger asks, is the ammo loadout of the tank customizable, and to which extent? A tank with heat or ATCR wouldn't make much sense, but most games nowadays allow it.
There will be some limitations on ammunition layout in the tank, if I understood that question correctly. So you won't be able to just take the rarest, most effective ammunition and fill your entire tank with it. Was that the question?
Yeah, I was just asking, will there be a limit on like how you can arrange your ammo loadout?
Yeah. So, certain...
Like, realistically, you can't, take 40 HE shells and, you can't just take 40 heat shells, 40 of the experimental ammo that, was given to, a couple of tanks. You can't just get an entire, load of it in your ammo.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Oh, are the real-life production numbers of the rare tanks going to translate their prices? Like the SU 100Y and Sturm Mill only had 1 or 2 built and used in combat. Would that make them more pricey?
In terms of the like real money that they will cost to purchase for the game, that's probably not what we're going to use as a metric. But in terms of the in-game economy that dictates how much something costs to spawn with the in-game currency, probably, yeah. I mean, we're using historical values for that currently.
I mean, I think the biggest indicator might be how much time was put into it, like how much like effort it is to like research each individual
Yeah,
thing.
that's another factor. I mean, some vehicles are just a lot. They're much bigger projects to create. Like, for example, just four-engined aircraft with full interiors. They're a lot harder to create than, you know, an Opel Blitz. So they cost more naturally.
Oh, that's actually a good question. John Kind asked if you recommend a sort of building mechanic. So, like, say you can do your own trenches and stuff, or maybe the AI will do that, like, you know, reinforce their own positions.
Currently, that basically requires terrain deformation, which is quite performance heavy. So essentially, we have to make cutbacks somewhere, otherwise the game will be extremely hard to run. So something like that isn't planned right now. Making your replacements. They're sort of strengthening. It's sort of a tactical battlefield more than a strategic one, so you don't really see stuff like that much anyway. So right now the answer is probably not too much of that.
How big will the map be actually? Good question.
Yeah, so quite large. Probably around. Well, we're aiming for at least 5 by 5 kilometers for the basic ground area, and obviously a much larger surrounding area for aircraft operations that will not really be used much by the ground troops. So basically big enough that sort of driving to the combat area is a significant, what would you say,
Journey.
consideration. Yeah.
Oh wow, like in X kilometers by X kilometers.
Sorry, what was that?
Like that was Bellows, the guy who asked the question. Big clarification, like how big in kilometers, like.
Yeah.
Like one side by one side.
I said 5 by 5 we're aiming for at least.
Yeah. Oh, and how many players will a map hold?
Okay, at least 64 is what we're heading for.
And with that, is that 64 tanks or is that 64 players?
64 players.
I think that's something that people have to take into consideration. That in that situation, there might be 5 players to 1 tank, so it may say 64 players, but it might be less than that.
Yeah, and that's why AI is such an important consideration, because milsim games are usually just very empty, unfortunately, so I think AI is just necessary to supplement the battlefield and make it feel more alive.
Light up asked, will there be any sort of a progression system?
Yeah, so there are various avenues of progression. So you don't unlock tanks via grinding. That's done via either they come for free or you pay for them. But there are other things. So so your progression will be tied to each country. To specify that from the beginning, you will rank up via historical ranks. You'll unlock cosmetics so that you can customize your character with, as in like their physical uniform. There should also be some character customization in terms of facial hair. Also in regards to stuff like the sidearm you carry, like little stuff that you can customize and you can unlock via playing. Also the modifications for the vehicles, you'll unlock that by playing the vehicle and gaining XP in it.
How detailed will the foliage be on Xbox? If it's like how it was the Panzer IV shooting short, that would be pretty performance heavy unless you optimize it well. I think that's in reference to foliage that was in the VFX showcase.
Yeah, that was a like demo environment set up by the VFX artist to highlight the VFX. That wasn't like the map which we have in game or anything like that. I mean, I don't really like. How can you use words to describe how thick foliage will be? You'll just have to basically judge for yourself when we release the devlog tomorrow, and you can see the map for yourself and the vegetation. I mean, I think it looks pretty good. But yeah, performance-wise, we are making you know, significant considerations for optimization at every level.
Oh, Milerman asked, I was wondering how realistic you guys were going to make the controls. Will controls be easy for casual players that don't own any type of aircraft joystick?
So no, the aircraft will not have arcade controls just because it makes them completely unbalanced from the ground troops perspective. If you give aircraft mouse aim, they become like 100 times more effective than they should be. So to control aircraft, you will need to use either a virtual joystick or an actual joystick. In terms of the tanks, they're not particularly hard to control from like a actual like physical difficulty perspective. It's just, you know, you have to know what to do. The only exception to that would be the driving, because you are controlling the tillers manually with buttons, as well as the gear shifts and the brake and the gas, and that does require a little bit of coordination, but it turns driving into an actual skill. So driving, I'd say, is the only thing on the ground where like skills are actually something which you really want as a precursor. You don't just want anyone random driving your tank, because they definitely could mess you up in a important point.
Top to our order, I actually did ask. Will you add functional Zimmerit? Like if you add magnetic mines, will they stick on the non-Zimmerit surface?
So there probably
surfaces
isn't.
And vice versa?
There probably isn't much point in us doing that, because as far as I'm aware, the Germans put Zimmerit on because obviously they were worried about magnetic mines, but as far as I'm aware, no one actually used them apart from the Germans. So
as well as the Zimmerit actually not even working whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
It did not actually stop against magnetic mines. If you ever get the chance to go to a museum or have a tank displayed anywhere that has a Zimmerit, they allow you, you know, touch it. If you bring something magnetic, it will most definitely still stick to it. I've seen this done heaps of times.
So, okay, well, probably not then is the answer to that. But not because of a lack of historical care, but because it actually just didn't work.
I mean, at that point, I think Zimmerit might just be a cosmetic thing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, cosmetically it will be there. It's just doesn't seem it actually does anything practically.
Oh, would you guys consider creating a separate game mode with expanded versions of these maps for players who may prefer slower paced gameplay? Like maybe 15 kilometers by 15 kilometers? Personally, I think the current 5 kilometer by 5 kilometer map is too small for such a sim-oriented game.
Well, basically, realistic is supposed to be that slow-paced thing. So if 5x5 is not sufficient, then we will increase it. That is supposed to be the slow-paced map. I think 5x5 kilometers sounds smaller than it actually is when you try to drive across it in a Panzer IV. But we'll see. We may increase it. The fast-paced game mode will be arcade, with much smaller maps and arcade controls and one person controlling a tank. It's more similar to War Thunder Realistic, and yeah, Realistic will be slow-paced. So if 5x5 isn't enough to make it slow-paced enough, then we will adjust.
Oh, how is the game going to be? Will it be a free-to-play? And then you have to play to research new tanks to unlock? Or will it be pay to win? Oh, pay to get access. And then you have...
Freudian
I
slip.
hope it won't be pay to win.
Freudian slip.
Too much War Thunder brain. Too much War Thunder brain.
No,
I've been complaining too much to people about pay to win in War Thunder.
It's essentially more like the DCS business model. It's a little bit more like that, except instead of free to play, it's got like a low price to enter, so it's $15 to enter the game. But then equally on the other side, it's sort of cheaper, so there's more free vehicles. So it's got like high accessibility rather, due to the low price, which is a lot lower than most other World War II games. But on the flip side, of course, we're monetizing stuff inside of the game, so high accessibility to get the game and try it, see if you like it, and then monetization options for the people who do like it once they have bought it. I think that makes more sense, than paying $60 to try the game and then not having monetization options inside the game. So, because you buy it, and then you like it, perhaps, but then there's actually there's no way for the game company to actually make more money off the fact that you like it. Whereas, if you don't like it, like, oh, you've just spent $60 on a game you don't like. So I think it makes much more sense to have high accessibility and then be able to monetize people's enjoyment.
Motherman asked, will a alpha test come out at some point so we can give feedback? I mean, semi-regularly a playtest at least goes out to the patrons.
The patrons,
so they can provide feedback. Yeah.
So if you
want alpha, I guess, go to Patreon.
If you guys want to test out current stuff, join the Patreon. Not only do you get that, but you get a whole bunch of other benefits, such as special vehicles once the game releases, like unique vehicles that are not available outside of being a patron while it's in development. You get loads of sneak peeks of stuff. You get access to test builds. Long term, of course, there will eventually be an early access test where the public will be able to try it out.
Ice Elite asks, can people who don't own a tank, like a certain tank, still be part of the crew of someone else who owns that tank?
Yeah, you just need one person who owns the tank to spawn it, and then the rest of your friends can just spawn at the same depot and hop in the tank.
John Kind asked, how would the German heavies work in game with the transmission and engine going on fire or breaking down? So will mechanical errors and faults be simulated?
So basically, yeah, mechanical errors will be simulated, but they'll not be based on RNG. Instead, they'll be based on your skill as a driver. So, if you mess up all the time, switch into reverse gear while you're driving forwards at 40 kilometers per hour, over-rev your engine, you will cause it to destroy itself, pretty much. So those tanks will basically just be more sensitive to that, so you'll have to drive them more carefully, and, inevitably they will break down more often.
Subwater asked, so the game is multi-crew? Yes, the game is multi-crew. That is a pivotal point of
honestly, I'm surprised you don't know that, Subwater. You've been in the Discord for 6 months already.
You're an active contributor of our community, Subwater. I don't know why you don't. You never read the FAQ?
Yeah.
You not have access to the dev Q&A chat? For shame.
So you need at least a driver. The way we have it planned right now is that if you don't have other people to join with you to a multi-crew tank, the other spots will be occupied by AI. So when the other spots are AI, you will need to be commander. But once there's at least one person in the commander spot, then the second person and third person and fourth person, they can take whatever spots they want. But if there's only one person in a tank, then they will have to be the commander.
And the rest of the crew spots will be AI.
Yeah.
Even if other crew members are AI, you still need at least a gunner and a driver? No. All you need is one. You just need yourself, and you will only be able to occupy the commander, but you'll just be directing your AI to do what you would like.
Yeah, exactly.
Finsku asked, what kind of damage model are you going to use?
A module-based damage system. I think it's realistically the only way to go. Yeah.
Is there going to be a way to stop new players from being part of the crew for an advanced tank, which is locking the tank?
Yes, you will be able to do that.
Oh, John kind of asked. Also, one big thing: if you add a camo net or stowage, would you be able to place them on the tank?
Currently we're not planning that kind of customization, as in like external add-ons that you can basically just place wherever you want. Instead, we have modifications that have sort of pre-selected locations.
Well, this was a question about the Patreon, but if people have a gold or silver tier consistently throughout the development, will they get the game for free?
I mean, it's not something which we'd put much thought into, but I see no reason why not. Yeah, because of the game's low buy-in price.
Subject Water said again about if you meet, I mean, for an authentic experience, you still need a driver and gunner, else it'd just be a realistic War Thunder experience. Which
you seem
I don't think that's true.
Subject Water, you seem slightly like this is all written on the web. I mean, no, because the commander does not control the entire tank by himself. That's not how it's going to work in game. The commander has to relay instructions to the crew. He has to highlight targets. He has to mark locations for the driver to go to. It's not like War Thunder, where if the commander is alone in a tank, he will not control the entire thing. If the, yeah.
I mean, it will most definitely will not be a realistic War Thunder experience because you're directing your crew to do everything that you want.
Yes.
Like you have to be on the ball with this AI, or they just won't do anything. Like telling your driver where to go, telling your gunner what to shoot, telling your loader what to load.
Yeah, exactly.
All these things, and also talking, using the radio man, talk with the rest of the players on the battlefield. It adds up.
Exactly. Yeah. The commander has a really hard job. I probably just skip duplicate questions. I mean, this stream will go on the channel afterwards, and people can just check it.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting question. Millerman asked, if you guys want to make a Normandy/D-Day map, you should implement some type of ship firing barrage, which I guess would be realistic because there were encounters where ships were firing on tanks, and it most definitely did damage.
Yeah, so ships basically acting as artillery is like a big thing, and it'll be present probably long before the D-Day campaign. In the Battle of Greece, that happened as well, so it'll probably be present there.
So Jack asked, these Patreon vehicles are going to be perma unavailable after launch, right? Just curious how far perma will play into this game compared to something like World of Warships? Oh yeah, World of Warships with a 2-year exclusivity window.
Sorry, can you repeat the first part of that question? I didn't quite hear it.
All good. Jack asked, these Patreon vehicles are going to be are these Patreon vehicles going to be perma unavailable after launch?
Yes.
As in, they can't get them?
Yeah. The only way you can get them is by being a patron prior to the launch.
There's that, and also if a Patreon decides to sell it on the marketplace for however much it might.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly.
Someone asked, so is it glorified enlisted? I mean, not really.
No,
I mean,
because Enlisted is basically a completely different game. This is far more akin to Armour 3. I mean, for one, the emphasis is on vehicle combat. In Enlisted, the emphasis is on infantry combat. In Enlisted, it's a small, fast-paced map. In Ice and Armour, it's a large, slow-paced map. You have objectives you have to cancel. You have a you have objectives you need to fulfill. You have a front line which moves. It's not it's not really anything like Enlisted, honestly. If it's sort of like saying, like, is Armour 3 a glorified CS:GO? Like, not not really.
Somebody asked, will you be able to play with random players if you don't have friends in a squad? I mean,
Yeah.
I thought that would be more of a given, but yeah.
Of course, yeah. So, I mean, just like in squad, when you spawn a vehicle, you can lock it. Oh, sorry, when you have a squad. Sorry, in squad, when you have a squad, if that makes sense, you can lock it or you can keep it open for, you know, randoms to join. And that's, yeah, of course, that's going to be the same here.
People are talking about, will Cass be too OP? I mean, you got to stop thinking like War Thunder, man. The game's not going to be like War Thunder whatsoever. The only thing that War Thunder and Aces and Armour has in common is that it's a tank and playing game.
Sub 2 Water is really a War Thunder veteran.
Yeah, real.
So the thing is that when you give World War II aircraft mouse aim, meaning you can just point where you want them to shoot and click, and you give them unlimited 360-degree visibility, they become unbelievably OP to ground units. In real life, lots of you probably won't know this because you haven't tried flying an aircraft with a joystick, but in real life, you've got the cockpit in front of you. You can only see around like maybe 40% at best of what's around you. Flying with the joystick is much harder. It's much harder to aim. It's much harder to do everything. And that's part of the reason why in real life Cass wasn't nearly as effective as people thought it was. It was mainly effective as basically ruining the morale of the enemy, because obviously it's frightening to get strafed by aircraft even if they don't actually hit you. So Cass is not OP when you give aircraft simulated controls.
Aircraft fuel is going to going to be used as a balancing factor / fix, or will they be variable?
What was the first part of that question?
Are fuel loads going to be used?
User entered your channel.
Sorry, that was a bit like,
Oh,
hey Fox, how you doing? We're streaming right now, don't know if you've seen.
Yeah, I know. I just I just came to listen some answers.
Ah, cool.
All good.
I just woke up.
Cool.
Woke up and
Yes.
straight onto the Ace Armour screen.
No, vehicles will have their historical abilities, fuel loads, guns, speed, maneuverability. Like, we're not changing stuff like that about the vehicles to balance them. It's a military simulator.
Can you set preferences for what position in the tank you usually want to occupy, like driver, gunner, loader?
So, I suppose that would be most relevant when you're playing with randoms, because obviously with your friends you can have, like, you know, you can talk about that and have preset positions which you want to play. With randoms, you're probably just gonna want to talk to them over voice chat and say, you know, I'm a really good driver, let me take this for a spin and show you how good I am. You're probably just gonna do stuff like that. The preference thing, I mean, it doesn't have that much of a role outside of going with randoms. And if you go with randoms, you really need voice chat. And if you have voice chat, you can just say to them, can I please be gunner? I can hit a L3 at 10 kilometers.
Yeah, I mean, people asking, is there text chat, is there going to be a voice chat? I mean,
Yes,
I think those sort of...
there will be voice proximity chat. Text chat, no. I mean, sorry, yes. I don't know why did I just say yes. Text, there will be text chat.
I mean, I think it's
Sorry.
like the basics of like a simulator will be in there.
Yeah,
But like,
that's
can't
just
assume that'll be like
expected.
War Thunder.
Yeah, that's just
you gotta
expected.
Will there be multi-crew bombers?
Yes.
I mean, that's actually I can probably lead into a question of how will bombers and like aircraft
Okay,
multi-crew work?
so yeah, so when it comes to this is a tactical battlefield. You have to remember. So strategic bombers, they don't really get involved in tactical battles. Hence their name. So realistically, you're not going to see strategic bombers like B-17s and stuff. It's just kind of inappropriate for them in this context. But that's not to say that you won't see large four-engined aircraft. I mean, there are maritime patrol, there are transport aircraft, Ju-290, Sunderland, Canadair Z511. I know I keep on saying that. So yeah, they will be multi-crew. All vehicles will be multi-crew. That's kind of like the point, really. Every vehicle is multi-crew. Sorry.
Oh, someone was talking about a modern tank too, by the way.
Yeah, this is World War II only. No plans to go beyond.
Yeah.
Sorry, I see a lot of people saying add the L3. The L3 was like the main Italian tank in the Battle of Greece, so that's definitely coming. I personally like War Thunder's mouse aim. Yeah. I'm not surprised you... I'm not sure if you were here when I explained it previously, but it makes aircraft unbelievably overpowered. This is a military simulator. Giving aircraft mouse aim is basically the equivalent of, you know, CS:GO versus Armour 3 or something like that. It's just completely wrong. Like, I know War Thunder has normalized it, but like, you guys have got to understand, like, it's just so, it ruins so much of how aircraft operate, how they work, how they balance with ground assets, as well as making them have like literally perfect aim. You know.
Will there be a naval game mode where people can man turrets and move around the ship?
So no, that's not planned. It's right now we just have ground vehicles and aircraft planned. Naval assets will be present, but AI controlled. So what is the control scheme like for PC play when it comes to planes? So either virtual joystick, well, virtual joystick, that's it. I don't know if you've ever tried to play games like Microsoft Flight Simulator, IL-2, DCS. They require this input to work properly. I mean, you can try and use a virtual joystick, but I mean, yeah, virtual joysticks work. I mean, it's not as good, but you can sort of learn the ropes of the virtual joystick.
I mean, an alternative as an exclusively no joystick player that's on PC. I mean, you can always just join your buddies and be a gunner and do all those other roles.
Exactly, or a
And
co-pilot.
I mean, it won't be boring because like there'll be actual stuff to do. Like in games, like say IL-2, if you hop in the gunner, you're only gunner, so you're only there if you know, are trying to attack you randomly, like maybe for 5 seconds.
Exactly.
You
So,
get like
yeah.
5 minutes of gameplay.
Exactly. This is like another factor. Like, not everyone has to be a pilot. Aircraft need other crew members.
Oh, will the game have a Flak 37, the Italian 90mm, or any other large, both anti-tank and AA use cannon?
Okay. So yes. Is the Flak 37 quite similar to the Flak 18?
I mean, it follows the developmentary tree of Flak 18,
Okay.
Flak 36, and then Flak 37.
Well, I can tell you guys now that the Flak 18 is already nearing
Flak
completion.
36, Alex. That is Flak 36. It is not 18.
Oh shit! Sorry, the Flak 36. Yeah, the Flak 36 is nearing completion. So, That's also going to be shown in the next devlog.
Are you guys gonna add some random Russian tractors in some fields that you can capture? That is a staple of any good World War II game.
Yeah, that's planned for. Old civilian vehicles that have been hurriedly abandoned here and there. I think that's kind of pretty important to like the ambience of, you know, the battlefield vibe, even when you're outside of the actual battle. So, imagine you're a pilot, you bail out in a field somewhere, you're walking back to base, and then you find a tractor, so you could just hop on it and make the journey back a bit quicker.
How will capture points and targets work in the game?
Yeah, it's sort of hard to know how to explain that. We're basically putting a lot of thought into exactly how they'll work. There's probably not that much value in me, like, telling you the ideas that we have right now. Probably something like, rather than just, like, if there is a vehicle in the proximity, you can't cap it. Rather than something like that, I think we'll have something like a capture zone will be an area, and you will need to basically rid the enemies from the area in order to capture it, or have the vast majority of assets there. So it'll probably be sort of a percentage-based thing, like if 90% of the cap is, and also it won't just be a circle, it will be something like a village. So if 90% of the village is filled with your troops and your tanks, and there's like just a couple of houses left full of Soviets trying to hold out, you know, you clear them out, you capture the village on the map, sort of the front line moves to include that village.
Will I be able to stow ammunition wherever I want? Like, I can choose where to load each individual round to minimize stowing ammo near walls of hulls and turrets.
Yes.
And that will most definitely be part of the loader's job.
Yeah.
Try and make it not boring.
Yeah. So yeah, quick answer, yes.
Can we fix AT guns onto civilian view?
Definitely not.
I mean, if you count putting a flak 38, a little 20 mil onto a Opel Blitz as putting a gun onto a civilian vehicle, then I guess so.
Well,
Like,
yeah, I mean, those are like military conversion. I mean, in the game, like, you're not gonna have the facilities to
Yeah.
mock. I mean, that would take days anyway. So, it's, yeah, that's I mean, there will be funny things like, yeah, the Opel Blitz has that massive cannon mounted on it and stuff like that. So if that's what you mean,
how will ammunition replenishment work?
yeah,
Like, we have to exit the tank and manually load in the shells?
no, it's more like you'll drive back to a friendly depot, and it will basically be replenished by you being in the depot. Obviously, like, it's one of these things where ideally, yeah, it would be nice to have like a unique loading animation for every single tank and every single hatch, but at some point reality sort of kicks in. That's just too much development resources.
Oh wait, YouTube does display this as a War Thunder stream,
Does it really?
by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, in the bottom.
Wow. Poor Isle 2.
How will the map work in the game? Will the map be will it display your location, or will you have to work it out yourself?
Oh yeah, no, it won't display your location. You have to navigate both on the ground and in the air.
Will Russian armor quality be replaced in the damaged model?
It's not something we're looking at right now. It just makes gameplay a little bit frustrating and hard to balance, because obviously not all Russian armor was like that, and not all points during the war. It's probably something we're just going to avoid, apart from possibly giving it a value so that it degrades quicker if we can find proper information that it was widespread at this point in time.
What about AT mines? Oh, and actually, building onto that, how will the infantry work against you as AT?
Yeah. So they will have anti-tank rifles. There will be anti-tank cannons. In terms of landmines, it's a possibility that we might give the AI the ability to do something like that. But the main thing will be with anti-tank mines and... sorry, no. The main thing will be with anti-tank cannons and anti-tank rifles.
Oh, will there be a Lend-Lease version of the Sherman and other American and British tanks? The Russian.
So, yes, that's definitely planned. Yeah, I thought you were just gonna say the Sherman there. I mean, yeah, probably the Sherman as well, but...
I mean, the guy just asked about the Sherman, but I mean, I gotta expand it.
Probably. I mean, it's possible, in fact, that the next vehicle which we're going to be modeling might be the Churchill 3 Lend-Lease or the Matilda 2. I'm leaning slightly towards the Matilda 2 because there's actually a guy I know who's got a running Matilda 2, and he said I can go over to his farm and record it, so we can have the authentic sounds. So it might make sense just to do that next, and also because I think there were a fair amount of Matilda 2s, and this is actually at their peak of operational use, late 1942, so it does make quite a lot of sense.
There was a question about would you consider adding options for production variant of the tank? And I mean, I guess to build onto that, maybe say if your team is running low on money and you still need to spawn tank, maybe you have an option to spawn a less good version of a 34 that is missing parts that it may have just come out of the factory.
I'm not exactly sure what you mean. I mean, what will probably happen in that situation will be you'll be forced to use cheaper and cheaper and sort of worse and worse tanks like the T-26. I'm not entirely sure what the situation is of like worse versions of the same tank. I mean, you might be forced to not equip them with modifications that otherwise you would have done because you haven't got the money for it.
On nuclear, since the battles are historical, what is tank spawning like? Are you allowed to take whatever from a limited pool, point cost system, limit on active tanks?
You are basically, so the way it works is basically, I'll need to sort of explain about the AI commander. So each team has an AI commander, which is essentially controlling the battlefield in terms of the movements, organizing certain locations to attack, certain locations to retreat to, giving messages like assets and infantry in this location, attack, you know, this village in 15 minutes, stuff like that. And so the AI commander also has a budget to operate within, and capturing certain objectives gives him more of a budget to work with. And so you spawning vehicles, right now the plan is that it also takes out of his budget. So it'll be balanced so that if you perform to an average degree, you'll basically be given the leeway to take the vehicles that you like. You spawn them at depot. But the issue is if you perform extremely badly, the AI commander will kind of step in and say, you know, I can't justify giving you a Tiger 2, you've spawned 5 times and you've killed 1 infantryman. You know, take something else. Or get up your reputation points by doing by doing logistics for a bit. Sorry, people who are watching the stream will know why I just said that.
Yeah, it's a little delayed on my end.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically how it would work.
But yeah, that was another interesting question from Finn. How will weight affect crossing bridges or driving across sandy or swampy ground?
Yeah. So different types of ground have different tractive values essentially. So there will be some difference depending on the terrain you're crossing, just in terms of the grip it gives you. Actually simulating going into modern stuff like games like Spin Tires do, I think would be very, like, extremely ambitious for us to try to go towards. So, you know, maybe an Aces and Armour 2 in 2040, but right now, that's probably going to be out of the... I mean, you know, that specific mechanic is basically like their entire game, Spin Tires. Like, that's the entire thing it's built around. So just having that as sort of like a, not even secondary, but like tertiary mechanic is just probably not going to be feasible for us. So, but the different tractive values of different types of terrain will be simulated. And in terms of bridges, I think we could do that without too much trouble. Just have bridges basically fall apart if something over a certain weight crosses them. But you have to keep in mind, I think for most of the war, apart from like rickety, you know, wooden bridges, I can't imagine that was like that much of a concern until you start getting to the Tiger 1 and the Tiger 2 and stuff like that. But yeah, we could include it. I mean, we've got Da Vinci in the chat actually, who probably would be modeling those bridges. So I'm guessing we could just make them fall apart if something exceeding the acceptable weight goes on them.
God damn, now I'm getting bridges to you.
Sorry,
He
what?
only just finished the shed. Gotta now make new bridges.
No, not now. I mean, you know, like far in the future.
Will improvised armor like logs actually work and function? I mean, realistically, they didn't work or function. It was more just like a psychological thing, and also just to help tanks get unstuck. So I mean, you can put it on and hope that it works, like you played they did in real life. But I mean, like nothing's stopping you from doing that. I just don't know if it would work functionally, anyways.
Yeah. We will work out some kind of like the modification system we have. If a tank extremely commonly had this kind of wooden thing, then it will be included. Whether it works or not, I mean, that will be decided by our ballistic system, which will be extremely sophisticated.
FBI asked, will there be any prototype tanks on the battlefield or slash very rare? And I mean, I think we already answered this, so I don't think you were here. Prototype tanks won't be a feature, but very rare vehicles, like say if one or two of them were made, it would. I mean, we don't see why not. It would just be a bit tricky to get all the research for like a vehicle where only one or two were ever made.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the other thing you also got to understand. I mean, like you can make a lot of vehicles, and there could be heaps of them left, but there might just not be any good research or references on them, and in which case you're kind of screwed, because you got to understand that in like a full fidelity sort of game such as this, you got to try and you got to pick which vehicles you can or cannot make based on how much stuff you can find. Because there is only a limited amount of stuff on a vehicles like this.
That's true. I mean,
You just got encircled by that Ju-80, Ju-52. Oh my goodness, the wing like closed in on you.
yeah. I mean, so far, even with very rare vehicles, when we've tried to research it, we've basically come up successful. But, you know, that probably won't continue forever. There will be some vehicles, you know, I'm sure there will be some vehicles where the necessary information just won't exist anymore.
Con Nuclear was talking about how large could you expect the game to get, like games like megabytes, gigabytes, like actual size-wise.
It's very hard to estimate. I mean, we're not. I don't see any particular reason why it would be, you know, remarkably large. But I mean, you know, it's not going to be extremely small. There is quite a lot of content. So, you know, I mean, we're going to try and keep it as small as possible. We're not going to try and make a, you know, ridiculously large game.
If there's a gun jamming mechanic, how will you implement it? Will it be random? If your creature's damaged, there is a chance that you'll randomly jam or if your weapon overheats?
It won't be random. No, it's going to be based on if you fire it too much and it overheats.
Oh, how dread-inducing will a track repair be? Do we have to start manually replacing to leave road wheels on German late war tanks?
No, that's that would be a bit far. It's going to be something like some sort of thing, like you get out and then it brings up some sort of menu which you have to complete in order to complete the track repair. It won't be like a physical thing like in what's that game called where you repair tanks, like Scrapyard Mechanic or something.
Tank Mechanic Simulator.
Yeah. Again, it's these sort of like features which entire games have been built around like that single feature, basically very in-depth tank repairs. Like it's not feasible for us to just include it as a very minor feature amongst everything else. It's sort of ambitious as is.
That was already answered. Just want to ask, what nations are you planning on implementing to begin, besides Germany?
Yes,
I
we
mean,
already answered that.
The starting theater was planned to be the Eastern Front, 1942, early 1943, and if you want more, you can always just join the Discord server and read the FAQ.
Yeah.
And it has like a whole giant list of all the implemented or planned theaters.
But just to briefly, Eastern Front, late 42, Battle of Greece, spring 41, Pacific Theater, late war, Western Front, late war, North Africa, some point we haven't quite decided yet.
Oh well, that's definitely a question that'll be a good discussion. Do you think the scope of your game is rather ambitious?
I mean, there's sort of a lot to complete, but in terms of the actual core mechanics of it, it's essentially Armour 3 with a formalized game mode and more in-depth vehicles. And obviously Armour 3 is 10 years old, and sort of we're gaining traction, we're making a huge amount of progress. In a lot of ways, a lot of the hard work has already been done. So even though the project was ambitious in a sense, coming straight out of the gate, in another sense, it wasn't necessarily, because, we had a very experienced game team. They'd worked on Fortnite, Operation Harsh Doorstep, Kingmakers, new studio, old devs. I don't think it was ever out of our capability to do something like this.
Also, people seem to be a bit curious what we're playing. This is Isle 2, the Demovic. This is not game footage, like some people from the last devlog, or the dev stream from the last pod. This is just Isle 2, just some nice B-roll while we answer the Q&A. Question?
Yeah. I was playing our demo at the beginning, but
how much will the game cost? We already answered this, but it'll start out with costing $15 for entry, and then rarer vehicles will be a premium, and super rare vehicles will be a limited time premium.
Yes.
Just to limit how much seen on the battlefield.
Yeah.
But with the tank barrel is broken off, will the tank not fire at all, or will it fire with a lower muzzle velocity?
Wait, with the what? Sorry.
If a tank's barrel is broken off,
Oh.
will the tank fire at all, or will it fire with a lower muzzle velocity?
I mean, that's like a physics question. I don't know. We'll have to look into that. I'm not sure.
A lot of stuff will be stimulated.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we'll have like barrels literally breaking off. I'm not sure if that is a planned mechanic. I mean, I suppose they can get sort of exploded outwards if you hit them. And if that happens, I don't know if you can fire them. And if you tried, maybe it would blow up the breach inside the tank. But we're just gonna have to look into that, because I don't know the answer to that.
Rafe was saying, please don't make the game too complicated so that newbies don't get overwhelmed without even trying it. I mean, in that case, there is like plans for a whole manual of how to use each role, and also there was the talk of another game mode.
Yeah, the arcade mode. So the game caters to people who don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of realistic vehicle control. But I mean, we're making it sort of accessible. It's not extremely difficult to wrap your head around. Someone said $15, that's too little for the amount of... Yeah, it's because our monetization model is not primarily buy-in, it's mostly it's on, like, the in-game marketplace and on purchases inside the game.
Will there be modding support?
Yes, that's also something which I go into more detail in on the next devlog, which goes over the Locomotion system, and we basically highlight that in regards to the Locomotion system and the vehicles. They've been made modding friendly, extremely modular, so you can go in with your own model and set it up using in-game logic. It should be very, very intuitive to do it. So not only are we supporting modding, but making it so that it's not a massive pain in the ass to mod as well.
In a previous QA, said logistics will be a thing. Can we take a logistics squad and repair / salvage / fortify hardpoints with them? Not dynamic, or like a set upgrade, friendly AI bunkers getting etc. added.
That's not planned in the logistics role because it's basically, that's quite a long-term procedure which is done, and this is more of a short-term tactical battlefield. I'm not going to say it's completely impossible, it's just not planned right now. But it is possible. I mean, we'll probably investigate it later in development.
I mean, when the idea of logistics or gets like set in stone, it'll probably be a lot more easier to explain.
Yeah, exactly.
Since the rarer prototypes will be premium, don't you have a concern on balance? For example, a Tiger P was a prototype that had way more armor frontally than the regular Tiger. How will it be balanced?
No, I said prototypes would not be present if there was no chance of them seeing combat. I didn't say they would be limited edition or rare vehicles or premium vehicles. The Tiger P, did that see combat? I can't recall.
Oh, if they're talking about the Tiger 2P, I believe, maybe. Yeah, but the Tiger 1P with the funky Ferdinand hull, I do not believe so. But I mean
yeah.
it's still a valid question. What's the ideas behind balancing premiums that are rare?
Basically, the balance is that the way that the battlefield will work in the game, it's not kind to tanks. War Thunder, which is I think a lot of people are drawing experiences from, there's no armor degradation, there's no infantry to sneak up on you on. If you find a good position, you can tank shots from the front all day. Aces and armor, if you're an extremely heavy vehicle, not only are you slow and vulnerable to getting ambushed by infantry, but you're also a lot more unwieldy, probably more prone to breakdowns. With armor degradation, a few smaller vehicles could overwhelm you and destroy you, possibly without too much difficulty. I mean, we ran a simulation and we discovered that a Matilda 2 could pan a Tiger 1 frontally with just two well-placed shots. In War Thunder, if a Matilda 2 came up against a Tiger 1, there's literally nothing it can do. It's game over. But with stuff like armor degradation, single tanks, they're not really capable of becoming OP in that sense, because when you say stuff like add-on armor, it's not just a positive, it has a whole host of negatives as well.
It's that sort of War Thunder brain still. But I mean, you can't judge people for having that because it's pretty hard to have a basis to compare aces and armor to.
Yeah.
But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you just gotta try and come into the game with a different mindset that isn't based around War Thunder. And I mean, the premise will show itself more and more as the game gets more developed. But
I think the issue is that a lot of people are coming from not milsim games, and so they don't really have that much to draw on. Games like IL-2, they have aircraft with pretty radically different performance, but they don't necessarily have balancing. But it's not a problem because it essentially places the aircraft in a more realistic context. And like, so even if, you know, I'm in a Stuka and the other guy is in an LA5, he has all the upper hand, but it's a milsim. It's not like a competitive esports game, so it kind of doesn't matter. It's just fun. Like, it's not a min-maxing game is what I'm trying to say. A lot of people are used to min-maxing games where it's like, he has a 0.5 faster second reload time than me, therefore he has a big advantage. It's milsim games, they just don't really work like that because there's so many factors at play.
somebody was talking about artillery. Could you perhaps elaborate on that and maybe Commander Colin?
Yeah, so there will be artillery on the map. They will be able to be destroyed. The commander will use them. Holy shit. You will also be able to call in artillery strikes as long as you have a radio. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you guys, but I have to go to work, so
Ah, damn.
I'm gonna be hopping off. Yeah.
See you later, man.
See you, Fox.
Yeah, see you in 8 hours. Adios.
Yep, bye.
If we have a situation where we are damaged beyond repair but the crew isn't dead, or we're on the front with the damaged turret, etc., is there a benefit to evacuating on foot, or is it better to die and respawn?
No, no,
That's a good question.
it's yeah. Good question. It's much better to survive. What you're going to want to do in that situation is have a salvage or logistics vehicle come and save you, or tow your tank back to a depot where it can be repaired, or or you can you know, get on foot. I mean, you can leave them to do that, get on foot, head to the front line, look around for a tank or a vehicle, and hitch your ride back on the depot. That's sort of like the dynamism of dynamic battlefield. Like, it lends unique gameplay experiences. You know, you got your crew behind enemy lines on foot, trying to avoid detection, trying to find some kind of vehicle that can take them back home.
Yeah, so I mean, there is a bonus to, you know, not dying.
Yeah, definitely, because I touched on the in-game economy. Players are an important part of that, because obviously a single soldier, crewman, pilot, they take a huge amount of money to train. So in essence, they are worth a huge amount of money, even though maybe you wouldn't normally think of them like that. So you definitely want to save yourself, if possible.
What inspired you to begin making Aces and Armour? I think we've had this answer on a previous dev stream, but it's pretty funny to explain.
Yeah, so so it's kind of two things. I was playing that Roblox multi-crew tank game with a friend, and it basically occurred to me that multi-crew tank combat is incredibly fun, even though not too many games take advantage of it in a situation where it can actually flourish. And the other thing was, basically this genre is sort of, it's being dominated by titles from like 10 years ago. There's so much new technology that allows so many new interesting possibilities to happen. But obviously a lot of the older games are stuck in older generations of game engines, and they just can't take advantage of it. You know, you've got IL-2, released in 2013, I believe. War Thunder, same, I think.
2012, I think War Thunder was, yeah.
Yeah, you've got DCS, 2008. Also, I mean, you have got stuff like Squad 44. But obviously that's not exactly vehicle-focused. They don't have interior... It's like the vehicles aren't really the focus. I think the Armour 3 really is the inspiration. I love Armour 3. So, Armour 3 with more detailed vehicles and a formalized game mode is kind of the conception. Yeah, it was MTC4, sub 2 order.
How complex will the infantry movement be? Is it going to be like a branch level, ground branch level, or is it something closer to enlistment?
When you say movement, as in like, do you mean how intelligent the
Yeah,
infantry are?
I'm assuming that's what they were asking.
Yeah, so quite intelligent. A lot of the AI groundwork has already been done. Basically, to save, we've essentially been able to use a lot of pretty incredible technology to allow. Our current performance estimates are saying around 1,000 AIs is plausible, with reasonable AI intelligence. The way it's probably going to work is a lot of the complex decisions are made by the infantry squad leader, and just so to save resources, so that the individual infantry within that squad don't have to make a lot of complex decisions.
Can you shoot holes into the sides of tanks? So, like, will like a hole into the interior be realistic?
Yeah, this is something that we need. This has been a question since the beginning. We need to look into this. It's just heavily dependent, because I think I've heard a lot of people say it sort of requires modifying the geometry of the models sort of as it goes along, and I think that can be incredibly performance heavy. So we basically just need to further investigate whether this is plausible or not.
Gorkan said, when I see your game, I think of Gates of Hell or Men of War games, I guess. Do you consider having scenarios and abilities to make your own scenarios? I mean, that's an odd question, because, I mean, Aces and Armour is, I mean, it's still like a first-person shooter simulator sort of thing. It's not really a top-down sort of, is it RTS?
Yeah, it's not an RTS.
I mean, it still has, we're still talking about the question of, do you have own scene scenarios and abilities to make your own scenarios?
So the mission editor, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, being a loader in Armour is kind of boring though. Yeah, that is true, but I mean, that's also a key focus of the devs, is to try and make it so that these roles aren't boring.
Well,
Like,
the
making them
loader in Armour,
realistic.
yeah, and also the loader in Armour doesn't have all the realistic duties that one would have in real life. But yeah, if you find the loader boring, I mean, just don't be the loader then. Like, the AI can do that. That's the easiest job for the AI to do. So it'll be more than happy to oblige. Fuck.
I mean, it also adds to the being like, if you simulate everything that a person does in a tank, you get things like a the radio operator, where it might have been like an undesirable role to have previously, but now it's probably one of the most complex roles in the entire tank, because you have to actually manage the radio.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Konyu said, wasn't there going to be a load of minigame? Yeah, there was.
Well,
it's going to try and
quick time event more like than yeah, just to determine how fast the loading happens.
that, as well as the loader has to manage where all the shells are in the tank, and he also has to, like, if he has to move them from, say, like, some random part of the hull, he has to move them into the turret or into more desirable areas to get a quicker reload.
Yeah,
He is also micromanaging his own little world. What would a typical gameplay loop look like?
Do you mean for the player, like, as a whole, or within a specific match?
I'm gonna say in a match.
Okay, I mean,
Gameplay loop.
in a match, obviously the gameplay loop is trying to achieve the objectives that are outlined for your commander, trying to destroy enemy assets while protecting your own, capturing objectives, destroying enemy fortifications, pushing the front line forward. There's a huge amount of things. It depends on your role. I mean, if there are recon roles, your job may be to spot for artillery, or to rescue people in hard-to-reach locations by landing next to them in an aircraft, just for example, or driving there. Or if you are obviously if you're like a maritime patrol aircraft, your job is probably going to be to search for naval assets and pull them back and stuff like that. I may as well report outside of the game as well, just to, in case that was a question. I mean, the gameplay loop outside of the game, I think we've already basically elucidated it. I mean, similar to a lot of other milsim games. The gameplay itself is the main draw rather than a sense of progression. But the sense of progression comes from cosmetics, sidearms, modifications for your tank, upgrading your rank.
I think John Khan was asking about what will the radio operator's job look like? Like how will he function?
So yeah, the radio operator has to operate the bow machine gun if there is one, and he also has to communicate with friendly tanks by, you know, selecting a radio frequency which all the other friendly tanks are on, communicate with them, receive informations from the AI commander and relay them to the commander in the tank so he knows what's going on. Basically, the radio operator is the voice for the tank to the outside world, so it's incredibly important. The radio operator keeps everyone informed on what's happening, you know.
Will there be internal cosmetics? That's one I haven't heard, you know.
Yeah. It's possible. We haven't really laid the framework for that yet. But it's certainly something like an image which you can put. It's certainly it's certainly possible, rather than impossible. But external cosmetics is the main focus. But yeah, it's possible.
Something was asking, will AP cells in ANA be able to go through engine block? From what kind of perspective, AP cells will go through engine block? I mean, again, it's up to the simulation, up to
yeah,
our.
I mean, it depends on the AP shell. It depends on the engine block. There's no like one answer. That's sort of like asking, will an HE shell destroy a tank? It's like, it depends on the tank, it depends on the HE shell. It will have the possibility to. I mean, I'm sure a 88mm AP shell can go through a motorcycle engine, but I'm sure that a, you know, anti-tank rifle AP shell can't go through, you know, a King Tiger's engine or something like that. So it just depends on the engine, it's up to the simulation.
The trailer guy asked, will infantry action against like armored threats be complex? Like, will they be able to coordinate, create diversion, and if they overwhelm you, will they be able to throw grenades into the hull?
Throwing grenades into the hull is pretty hard. I mean, unless you have your hatches open, I don't see how that would be possible. But like using grenades to try and immobilize the tank and stuff like that, yeah, definitely. I think you know, a normal response to tanks is absolutely necessary. They won't just you know, be sitting out there in the open like nothing's happened. They will take cover. They will be very careful. They will try to immobilize you. If they can't outright destroy you, they'll deploy an anti-tank rifle, etc. Or just call for support if they have a radio. You know, there's a tank here. Help.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to that, you know, the complexity of the AI itself. I mean,
Exactly.
Brody's been working on that and has laid the groundwork for that like ages ago, right?
Yeah, well, he's been working on it since February last year. He has a lot of work under his belt in regards to that. For those who don't know, Brody is the AI programmer, and for those who know,
Dude, you actually can't be saying this on the live stream.
I'm sorry.
You can't be doing this on the live stream.
I just saw the opportunity and I had to do it.
For everybody who doesn't know, this Alex single-handedly has to be the most brain-rotted person I know. is now going on the public channel.
Okay.
This is what you deserve. Um,
I don't know if anyone even would have picked up on that. It's pretty subtle.
if we do have pictures, will we get custom ones so I can farm clips with pig pictures of dreams, ugly mug hanging off of my gun sight? I mean, I guess we have discussed this like briefly about I guess it'd probably just be the same thing as in IL2 where you can customize it, and like a lot of people in IL2 have like a custom cheat sheet.
Yeah.
Or like they'll say like what RPM certain speeds are of their engine, and you can do that. And I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to just put custom
Yeah.
image in, would you?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it makes sense. Pretty much that.
Oh, right. But will their response be dependent on the tank? Like if you're in an open top, could they just throw grenades or pull out a flamethrower? Will they adapt to your vehicle?
Oh yeah, I mean that's a total necessity. I mean, they can't react the same to an Opel Blitz as they do to a Tiger. Yeah, they need to react differently. I mean, there'll just be various categories of tank, like heavy tank, medium tank, light tank, open top.
Tank destroyer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you program the what's it called? If you program the AI to adapt to these sort of different scenarios, it lends to like how complex the AI is as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's just a complete necessity. I mean, in what world could we have it so that the AI reacts the same to an Opel Blitz as they do to a Tiger? Like, that would be, you can ship a game like that.
If you spawn in an aircraft, do you spawn at an airfield? And I mean, I guess same thing for a tank. If you spawn in a tank, do you spawn at a tank depot?
Yes. Although the way I would think about it is you spawn your character rather at a certain location depending on what you want to spawn, and then at that location there is an option for you to then spawn a vehicle. So you spawn your character at an airfield. At the airfield, you can then spawn an aircraft and you can get inside it.
Will overheating of gun barrels of automatic guns jamming the gun into firing, stopping the firing, or for a cooldown? Like, if you overheat your gun barrel, will there be like an adverse effect to it?
Will there be a what, sorry?
Like, if you overheat your gun barrel, will there be like a debuff for that? Like, how will that be?
Yeah, so your barrel could warp from overheating and ruin the accuracy afterwards.
How will vehicle decals work?
Probably, you know, you have some custom decals which you can unlock and such, and you can place them at preset locations on the tank or vehicle. But yeah, I'm a big fan of decals. I want you to be able to customize your tank.
I mean, it is much better to have like a custom like tank and like personalize it, because you know then I guess it also tricks your psychology into thinking, you want to preserve the tank because you've named it your own special thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can make things with your friends and have like a whole squad, like a specific squad of tanks.
Definitely.
And yeah. Will you treat crew like War Thunder with just having HP, or will it be more complex? So I imagine goal will be a thing, but how will it affect crew?
It'll be pretty much like Armour 3. Your person has a HP, but there's damage multipliers depending on where they get hit. So they can take a lot more damage to their legs than they can to their head.
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about before a little bit, but I mean, it was mostly just going to be the same system as armor, maybe possible dismemberment.
Yeah.
Will decals and uniform insignia expecting it to be censored? I'm assuming the specific nation that most of its insignia are censored.
I don't want it to be censored, ideally, but it just depends on the laws. I mean, if we're forced to, then we'll have to comply. But ideally, I would not want it to be, but it's something we have to look more into.
If an AI squad has lost its AT, will there be a chance for them to assault the tank? As in, like, would they try to rush you, or would they try to distract you and maneuver you away? I guess I think there's lots of talk on the AI now because we brought it up.
Yeah, sorry, can you repeat the question? The engine was pretty loud.
Oh, sorry. Will the like enemy squad, like, say if they've lost their AT, will they rush you? Will they like try to distract you, maneuver you away, and like deal with you else how?
It just depends. If there's some friendlies nearby that can do something else, then there's no reason why they would do that. I mean, even if there aren't any friendlies nearby, I don't really see why they would rush you. I mean, you probably have other tanks nearby or infantry nearby. I mean, rushing you would likely just be a complete death sentence for them. I mean, I imagine they just hide if that happened. But I suppose it's possible, I suppose. I mean, you have to keep in mind there are like a lot of emergent properties of AI. Sort of like after we program them, like you can't always just predict what they're going to do. They decide to do things based on what you've sort of instilled them with the knowledge of. So I can't necessarily just tell you like this is what the AI will do in this situation. Like it just depends.
Stuff to water. Will you be able to airdrop lightly armored vehicles into different parts of the map for a fee of in-game money or something? No, because that is not realistic whatsoever. That is a funny question.
Yeah, it's just not. I mean, there's just no real reason why we would add that. This is a tactical battlefield. That's not done on tactical battlefields. I mean, that would require a fleet of extremely large transport aircraft. And I mean, like imagine a fleet of very large like transport aircraft flying over Stalingrad to land in a field to let a bunch of half tracks off behind enemy lines. I mean, it just doesn't.
Oh no, the ME36. I think it's the ME360 Gigant. Largest. What was it? The largest.
Glider.
Glider the largest glider ever.
Yeah, the
And
36. Oh, the 323. Yeah.
Yeah, 323 Gigant, the
Yeah.
giant thing that you could like fit. You could fit half tracks in. Yeah. Just bring one of those out and drop it in the middle of the field. See what happens.
Yeah. Also, I mean, there probably won't be many fields large enough to land that in. I mean, I think they were designed for airfields.
Yeah.
I reckon let's wrap up with a few questions and then we'll probably call it a day.
Yep. We're just passing the 2-hour mark now, anyways.
Yeah.
Well, we did, but I think you might have missed it, trailer guy. But we did answer with the gore. I mean, it'll probably just be very similar to Armour, where there's just patches of blood and possible dismemberment. But how complex will it be? Complex as that, and how will it affect the crew inside your tank? I mean, I guess if you look over to your left or right and you see like your crewmate's head disappeared and he's no longer talking to you, that'd probably affect you psychologically, regardless of any in-game debuffs. But I mean, if you lose a member of your crew, it'll be pretty harsh on you.
Yeah.
Oh, the ME 321 was the glider. 322 was the powered variant. That makes sense.
Yeah.
You should add a censoring option because YouTubers and streamers. Yeah, that's a good point, honestly. Because otherwise, they'd have to manually blur it. I mean, you could probably just put a streamer mode on, regardless. That'll just hide people's names or hide the chat or whatever, and then we'll
Wait, is that like in the game?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's quality of life thing. likely to, yeah, probably do that.
Simulated pain? What do you mean by simulated?
Oh god. we ship an electric suit along with each copy of the game that just shocks you whenever something happens.
Well, remember there was a suggestion like that where it was a realistic mode where you only have one life, and it was a joke that just ship out a random guy with a gun, and yeah,
Yeah.
but if you died in game, you die in real life.
Yeah.
And tank wreck models. Oh, you were asking about dynamic tank wrecks. So say if the tank exploded because of an ammo cook-off and it detonated, will it have a specific, uh, you know, wreck look? Or say it got shot in a specific spot, will it just have like a burnt-out engine?
Yeah. The ideal is that we don't have to despawn wrecks, and however they were disabled, they just stay like that. And if they burn, the dynamic texture shifts over to a sort of blackened state. And if they don't burn, then they stay as they are. But this is just sort of performance depending. We'll just have to see.
E8 with launchable V1 rocket underneath it. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's probably the end of the questions. It started to die off with the questions now, so I think that might be a good time to call it.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, we can just do like 1 or 2 more until I park next to this Opal Blitz, and then we can probably finish it.
Oh yeah, you're yeah, I mean, if I wanted to clarified, I mean, will the soldier get debuffed of pain, or will there be something giving us info like white flashes to indicate the pain?
I think like damage will be there, in terms of like showing off with some red stuff on your screen. But pain, I mean that is sort of like directly linked to damage, so we probably don't need a separate thing for pain.
Oh, what about battle replay? That's good.
Yeah, I would really like that. I think we should be able to do it. I want to include that. We just haven't really looked into how it's actually done yet, but ideally I would like to include that, yeah.
Will you need a dedicated ARV to tow damaged vehicles? Or will you be able to tow a damaged target with a pair of Panzer IIIs, like some kind of garbage carrier?
Oh yeah, you'll be able to tow vehicles. You won't need a dedicated towing vehicle to tow other vehicles. You will be able to do it with other tanks as well.
I mean, it will probably just be a little bit easier with dedicated recovery vehicle because, you know, it's designed to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
Hands of chocolate. Yeah, make meth the tankers in the game.
Yeah.
Will custom maps be a feature? I mean, with the mission editor, and modding support, I don't
Yeah,
see how.
I think
why not?
that should be. I think the modding support will be able to cover that.
Oh, you're only here because Editor is helping us? Yeah. I mean, Editor has been a big help, especially with the Panzer IV.
Definitely, yeah.
Of his most recent video, or maybe not the most recent anymore, but like the most recent deep dive into them. He has been so helpful with the research for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, he's also just been helping us with other stuff like the T-34 as well. And
Definitely.
What else has he been helping us just as a reference? We have a big
BT7.
group of really helpful researchers, which all contribute a lot.
Yeah.
Really,
definitely.
really appreciate everybody. Like, we have people who have like experience with simulating ammo and the shells. People who are actually who volunteer in museums who give us actual like real life examples.
Yeah. Real life tank
All of that
drivers
stuff
as well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just helps into making the game as realistic as we possibly can.
Yeah.
Any info on minimum requirements to play the game? I mean,
not really yet, apart from the fact that we're trying to make it as performant as possible.
plan to simulate the engines of tanks as well, as in
I
like
mean,
the inner workings?
They're already simulated from the locomotion system. In terms of
No
yeah,
strategy won't get. I mean, I mean, you can always people will most likely add stuff with modding. I mean, you can't rule anything out because just you never know. Might come in a future update, but that's not a promise for anything.
yeah. But anyway, we should probably call it a day now.
Yep.
So happy Christmas to everyone watching. Thanks for your
Yeah. Merry
ongoing
Christmas.
support. If you're interested in the game, you know, support us on Patreon. Links in the description. And
Or join the Discord if you haven't already.
yeah, Discord links in the server as well. And yeah, and see you guys later. Bye.